Let's now talk about Dodd-Frank, some key regulatory executive orders coming out of this White House. What areas can Democrats work together with Republicans, with the White House, to pass some type of regulatory relief? There has to be some consensus. For example, what is your position on whether or not the consumer agency should be led by an executive board of sorts?
Well, I think the consumer agency setup, remember, initially it was proposed that would have a board, it'd be a separate entity, but it was actually our Republican colleagues that wanted fit underneath the Fed, and now they want to change that. I think it's actually been operating. I think Director Cordray has done a good job. I think he's been, on a relative basis, balanced. There are areas, though, of collaboration. There were a group of us senators, I'm on banking as well, that worked on relief for community-based banks, also looking at some of the standards for some of the regional banks, and also, frankly, some of the other areas about number of shareholders, all kinds of relief that we can move forward on. I heard Gary Cohn, and I have a great deal of respect for Gary. I've known him a long time, who's now the National Economic Advisor for President Trump. But I really took issue with some of his comments because, for example, he said we should get rid of what's called Title I and Title II, which has the orderly liquidation process.
Which he says that would get rid of too big to fail. You would disagree?
Well, I would say we have worked now. The regulators, the large banks have worked for years on putting together resolution plans. So you've got, if a crisis happens, you don't end up saying, where do we start? You've got to have a plan to show you can resolve yourself. The first preference is bankruptcy. But if bankruptcy doesn't work and you've got a systemic crisis on your hands, you need some ability to resolve that institution. So we've said, let's take the FDIC model and do that. And I think you'd find most of the large institutions actually agree that this will work. We hope we don't ever have to use it. But it's a tool out there. We all remember Lehman and its failure and the cascading effect it had across the whole industry. So I would take issue with his comments there. I'd also take issue with his comments about capital standards. Yes, America has higher capital standards. I believe that's made the banking industry safer. He's saying the Europeans don't. Well, we got Deutsche Bank.
Could you work with Republicans in terms of lowering those capital standards for community banks, Senator, that feel that this one-size-fits-all prescription shouldn't
Community
work?
banks actually have got an exemption below $10 billion already. I think that could be looked at being expanded.
You do think that could be looked at?
Being expanded. But capital standards around our large, significantly SIFIs, the significantly financial institutions, I'm not sure we should go down to the European standards, which he seemed to be advocating. When you look at Deutsche Bank right now, which seems from press reports, I have not reviewed their books entirely, but from press reports is a little bit tottering. Deutsche Bank runs into problems that could set up a financial crisis in Europe.
Quickly, Senator, last question. Have you engaged with Republicans on the Senate Banking Committee about negotiations in terms of Dodd-Frank legislation?
We have not yet. Mike Crapo, the new chair, is somebody I've got a long-term relationship with. We were in the foxhole together on the so-called Gang of Six on the Simpson-Bowles plan. I have a lot of faith in him, and I think what he and Ranking Member Brown want to do is see if there might be some easier things first, to put some points on the board to show we can actually work together.